And his best-selling novel, 1876, is now available in paperback, and a fine book it is. I like Gore when he's on this show. He says what is on his mind. Would you welcome Mr. Gore Vidal?
It was very funny.
Strange. Will we start politics tonight?
Well,
we've had a new administration for about a month now. Do you have any observations?
Well, I studied the new administration, and I'm happy to say that it is, though twice born, Mr. Carter is just the same as what we usually have. He posed, he was marvelous in the campaign because he posed, as something different. I want a government as good as you are, and I'm against those people in Washington, and he goes on and on and on. And what's his background? Well, he belongs to the Rockefeller family, as most of our presidents do. He was on something called the Trilateral Commission when he was governor of Georgia. This is a little Cosa Nostra, which has been organized by David Rockefeller, who owns the Chase Manhattan Bank, which owns you and me and the whole country. So he is a Rockefeller person, though he pretended he didn't know them during the campaign. So we now have a situation in which the President of the United States is a member of the Rockefeller Commission. The Vice President, Mr. Mondale, is. The Secretary of Defense, Mr. Brown, is. The Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Blumenthal, is. And the Secretary of State, Mr. Cyrus Vance, is also part of the Rockefeller apparatus. So the 5 great offices of state belong to this wonderful, fun-loving family whose interests are not ours.
Family next door. You were not exactly too cozy with the Rockefellers yourself.
No, I have always thought that really there should be enormous death duties when people die, that maybe you shouldn't inherit more than about $100,000. This would redistribute the wealth across the country and make it possible for us to have, governments that do not belong to the wealthy families who own most of the country.
All of the real wealth in the country is controlled by an amazingly small number of people. I mean, when you're talking about real power and real strength.
Something like 4% own about 50% of the wealth. And something like 51%, which takes in most of the middle-income people, own about 13% of the wealth of the country. This is the most dramatic division between rich and poor in any Western country, with the exception of France. No other country would put up with that. But I've been thinking about politics. First, I've been thinking about a number of things through the winter living here. One, I thought about the drought, started thinking about water, started thinking about politicians and how they never do anything. Wouldn't it be fun to elect a president who had done something? Now, nowadays, they go out for 4 years to every Ramada inn in the country with peanuts, a Bible in Spanish, and a hairdryer, saying, I just think you're wonderful people, and I just want you to vote for me, and I have faith in you, and you have faith in me, and this beautiful union takes place. Jimmy Carter has actually never done anything, except this sort of number. Well, then I thought, well, the system is so loaded that you can't get anybody who's actually done anything in a position. Then I thought, well, why doesn't somebody solve the water problem? Now, there's a lot of money in the country. You can have, for $93 million, which is the cost of a B-1 Northrop bomber, which we do not need, for $93 million, you could have a desalinization plant right off Santa Monica, which would provide a lot of water for people here. If there's too much water in Buffalo, as there was this year, and not enough in Marin County, you could have backup tanks all across the country. We have natural gas tubes from one end of the country to the other. We could also have water transport. Now, that costs money, and our rulers like to put the money into defense, because they're familiar with that. The holy war against communism must be fought every day, so there's a $110 billion defense budget. So I'd take some of the money away from that. Then, coming in, when I flew in here, I had, like St. Paul, on the road to Damascus, I had my vision. I saw this vast urban sprawl of Los Angeles. And as the plane was landing, I said to myself, looking at every one of those houses, I said, suppose they all flushed at once. Now, this is an awesome thought. I mean, the rivers would go down, but something else goes up. And then I began to think, my heavens, isn't that what it's all about? It's the flush toilet that's destroyed the United States and Western culture. We've got in the habit, if anything is unpleasant, we press a button and it flushes away, and we thought we'd never see it again. Now it floats back onto the beaches. So it reminds me, in the 19th century, when the water closet, as it was then called, was invented and put into mass production by Sir Thomas Crapper.
True.
An English figure. A bunch of missionaries went to Samoa, and they said to the Samoans, this must have been about 1890, 1900, they said, you're very primitive people, and you take your bodily wastes and you put them on your agriculture. It's dirty. You're going to have water closets, and you will flush, and your wastes will be taken away. And the Samoans said, but you're not supposed to defecate in the water supply. We have to drink the water. We must separate this. No, they said, this is the way. So there's no water in Samoa today. Now, this is happening. Then I started to think, what do you do about this? Well, we come back to the Rockefellers. No matter where you look, their long arm, their long scaly arm is at work. The fourth generation of Rockefellers is not so bad. They're atoning for the sins of the previous three generations. And there's one called Abby Rockefeller, who was the daughter of David Rockefeller of the Chase Manhattan Bank. And this young lady, whom I have not met, but I have read about, she went to Sweden and got the right to a flushless toilet, which is in production in Sweden, and she's trying to do it in production in America.
I read about it.
Fascinating. And if you don't need any water, and you don't need any chemicals, you have a sort of tank at the bottom. In fact, we have one here tonight. This is the first time, I know there's excitement here. I know it's the first time that I have ever worked with a prop. Now, I am very nervous. I may stumble.
Look, you've got the right prop to work with, though. Can we go over it?
Let us go over it, yes. Now, this is true. He's not making this up. Great moment.
Jack is going to bring it out.
This is
a model of it.
This is a model of it. I feel, you remember Robert Benchley in the Treasurer's Report? You know, this is, now, this is the way it works. Here you have the kitchen, and that is, it also takes care of the garbage from the kitchen. And on the other side, you have the water closet.
Right.
Which is there, looking rather like a, well, I don't know what it looks like. It's like a throne.
Okay.
Now, there are two pipes. Here is one, goes down from the toilet itself, and one goes down from the kitchen
this
sink.
is all underground.
This is underground. And by the way, 30% of all American houses have septic tanks, which are destroying the local water. So this will be applicable to 30% of our houses. Now, it's in three different sections. There is this air vent up here. There is a slight down suction as you sit upon it, which keeps any odors from escaping at the same time. Oxygen is what decomposes this. A family of 5 can use it, I think, quite successfully for 3 years without having to empty this out. And when they empty it out, it is nothing but lovely earth. And then
Comes compost again.
comes compost, and it is able to put it on your garden or wherever you like. And best of all, think of the commercials. Hi, I'm Jimmy Carter. I'm your president. And then the camera pulls back. I'm sitting on the box. And this is what we must do to save water all across the country.
That's really an informal press conference.
And that's the way to have a president who has done something.
So I have read about this. Now, if it is workable, why haven't we seen more of this?
You haven't seen more of it because the most of the communities in the country get enormous federal money for sewerage. And the politicians collect a lot of that money, and they are scared to death of this. They are building these things now in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. This thing costs $1,500. It's made of fiberglass. In mass production, it would come to half of that. It costs much less than a septic tank.
And uses absolutely no water at all.
No water, no chemicals, nothing at all. And 50% of the water that is used in the house goes into these toilets.
Yeah, 5 to 7 gallons every time you play.
And one family uses up 60,000 gallons in the course of a year. So here is an alternative.
This may be where we're all sitting very soon. I read about that.
So wonderful.
Yeah, I read about that, and here to see Sorry, we needed more time. I'm glad you brought that tonight. You mentioned that maybe Abby Rockefeller, if we could get her on the show, would be a fascinating guest.
I think you would find her fascinating, and she's very noble. I hate to say this about a Rockefeller, and would it be ironic if she made a fortune out of this?
Pains you to say it, but you...
That pains me to say it. But anyway, she is in the public interest.
I hope it comes to pass. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Steve, tomorrow night, Edie Gourmet, Peter Strauss, the Swiss Mime Group, fascinating, called Mummenschanz, and from the Los Angeles Philharmonic, Calvin Simmons. Thank you. Good night.